So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution.
The EEOC has gone off the rail against the meathead movers, and we've got to talk about this. So they filed a lawsuit against the meathead movers for violating age discrimination law by not hiring enough older workers. So they've been on a mission to hire student athletes. That's since 1997. Their social media, which you'll see in the background here, is a little goofy, right? It's a little odd, a little funny, but as far as I can tell, non-discriminatory. They're showing youthful folks, muscled employees lifting weights and lifting boxes. And so ultimately, they're looking at helping support student athletes pursue their dream career paths. And the idea, of course, just like most movers, is this is not a long-term job. This isn't a job that you find your career in for the most part. And as a result, it helps people get through school. It helps people pay for school if they're not on scholarship, et cetera, et cetera. And so their focus is their target job demographic is younger people and specifically student athletes. And the EEOC has a problem with that. They said because its marketing and hiring practices discourage older workers from applying. And so apparently current employees go and find potential hires at local gyms and colleges. Now, I want to be clear here. They're alleging disparate impact, and disparate impact goes back to Griggs versus Duke Power. It's a famous court case in HR history, and effectively what happens is that, or what happened in the 50s and 60s is that Duke Power was requiring high school education to do pretty low level work. I think the term usually was like ditch digger. And so they were requiring for a high school diploma for things like ditch digger. And as a result, they were discriminating against African American employees who did not have a high school diploma, or disproportionately did not have a high school diploma. And as a result, they were eliminated from consideration for jobs and not hired. And so the idea behind disparate impact is that it's not, it's not an explicit discrimination. It's more casual, and if you're by focusing in a specific area, you're by nature discriminating against others. And this is a pretty well-respected consideration. It's a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and it's generally speaking considered to be a bedrock of American labor law. But the EEOC has been looking into meathead movers since 2017, and not one complaint did they receive about meathead movers. They decided to file this lawsuit because they claim that their advertising practices were discriminatory towards older workers, and that's frankly that's it. Now they said that there were some intrusive job application questions, like asking someone's student's class schedule, and that could be considered a disparate impact, right? So in that scenario, students are obviously disproportionately younger, but that is not on its face discrimination, right? You don't have to be young to be a student, and that's again, it is potentially a disparate impact, right? But there is no complaint at this point, and they received 70,000 complaints last year. So you wonder why they're particularly going after this group. I went and looked at their job application, and frankly, perhaps I'm missing something, or perhaps they changed, but there isn't anything particularly egregious now. Although I imagine that after this lawsuit, they could have changed their practices. But the problem with this assumption is what could come from it, right? So if you take this really broad view of disparate impact, where does that go next? And I quickly think of those programs that specifically address return to work prison companies, right? There are all these companies out there that either only hire specific or only hire ex-convicts, formerly incarcerated people, or they make that the goal of their focus. And there's a lot of them out there. And I found one. This is from Persevere, and they have a youth support specialist, youth life skills facilitator. You can take a look at it if you'd like, but they're looking for someone who is willing and able to self-identify as a person who has relatable experience and who has interacted with the juvenile justice system, struggle with school academics or similar. And that could result in disparate impact in and of itself, right? That has the potential of being advocating to a certain specific group or several specific groups and excluding others. And so this really reasonable request from this employer, which again I have absolutely no problem with in and of itself, but it could be considered disparate impact. And so that's the concern here, is that what if you have an EEOC who gets on a different administration and uses its own laws to enforce things that they don't like or that they disapprove of or they don't want to see happen? And that's why some of these laws can get quite dangerous and very frustrating for these people. I mean, Meathead Movers offered $750,000 to settle this, and the EEOC doesn't want anything to do with it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.